Chair,
I'm going to read from my notes from when I was looking over everything in my home. Oh,
I'm sorry.
oh, you're not done?
I know. The witness wasn't finished.
Oh, I'm sorry. Because it's a question for him.
okay, and just what I was stipulating to the board is that we are seeking to have the sewer extension and have it as proposed, and should we not be successful in that, obviously we'd have to come here for an amendment, should we be approved.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Comey, with the application for the pump station extension and the amendment to the 208 plan, do you have an idea of how long that may take
That was my
through
question.
the process?
I understand it's not a quick process. I expect it would take a number of months, but I can't give you a definitive time, Mr. Euro. I'm sorry.
So just for clarification, it's my understanding that these amendments don't necessarily take place on a lot-by-lot basis. The county usually likes to consolidate a number of different applications throughout the county, as it is a county application, and it could take up to a year or two, depending on how quick it makes it through the paces of the county and the surrounding communities. So just for the board's knowledge and, as it goes through the DEP also, so.
Right, this is why I was going to read from my notes from earlier today, because, so everybody understands. The sanitary, can you hear me now? Okay. This is what I wrote earlier. The sanitary sewer ends in front of the Horn. Am I correct?
Further to the north of the property, I would say approximately yes.
Okay. And you're proposing to tie into that force main pump?
Not to a force main. We would propose a force main to connect to the nearest gravity system. So we would connect to a manhole.
Okay. And the Bay Shore Regional Sewer Authority is the service in the area?
Correct.
Okay. And so you're going to require a sewer service area, correct?
Right. The Bay Shore is one
And
part of it.
New
Yes.
Jersey Department Environmental Protection is the one that, and if you don't get it, then your plan B is septic.
Our plan B is to come back to the board with a plan.
Okay. And you're saying that you can't get the amendment without our approval? Is that-
We started the application. I don't do it very often, the sewer service amendment, but which is why we contracted with a wastewater engineer
Okay.
to take over that part of the project. Yeah, part of the application forms does require township approval, whether that means planning board resolution or whether or not we can get by with a letter of recommendation. Whatever we can do to start that process earlier, that would be best.
And Madam
Could
Chair,
you you have the sewer person here at the next meeting?
We can try to arrange that.
we can, and
This way, if,
I don't think it's this planning board's approval. I think it's the governing body's approval. But the time and expense that would go into proceeding with that, if we don't get through this board, it would be for naught.
So just to clarify, the assumption is you're going to make an application for sewers. If you get past this board and you don't get the sewers, you're proposing above the ground septic system
We're proposing to come back to you
for
an
an
amended
above ground
right.
septic
for an
system.
amended approval.
okay.
Well, just for clarification, Madam Chair, so there will be two options, and Mr. Comey and Ms. Krimko can clarify. If they do not get approved for the sewer service area amendment, their options are to provide some sort of an on-site package plant, which is one alternative. Or if they want to go with a conventional septic system, they will have to reduce the size of the development. So you
Okay.
could come within the 2,000 gallons per day, but the development would not look like it does on these plans. So there are two options. So you
Tell me
either
the difference between a package system and a septic
A
system.
regular septic system
Is underground.
is underground, and what they call a package plant is just an on-site treatment plant that is reviewed and governed by the DEP. There are several of them in town. A lot of the larger developments in the southern part of town, the Vonage Plaza, et
Vonage.
cetera, They are in town, they can be designed, but they have to go through the review of not only Bay Shore and the DEP, you know, it's just not an automatic. So, but like I said, just for clarification, there are two alternatives. One, with the current proposal, they could go with an on-site system, or if it's a conventional septic system, the intensity of the development would have to be reduced.
But didn't he say they can't do a conventional septic system?
With what's being proposed this evening at 15,000 square feet, they cannot do a conventional septic system.
So would be this package plan,
That would be the alternative, correct?
and that would require the site to be completely different in size.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily, no. No, if it's, I don't, that would be the, down the road, not familiar with those designs. So you would have to have that presented back to the board, and they would have to do those necessary calculations.
Right,
So-
and that isn't,
Currently,
that isn't what's before you tonight. And I understand, obviously, Mr. Emmer, you're looking into the
Yeah.
future, and I understand that. But any decision this board makes has to be based on the condition that we get the approval to do what we're proposing. If we don't, we come back to you, and we're
Understood.
essentially starting over, so.
I just wanted to highlight the alternative in case you do have to come back. That's all I was trying to do.
Understood.
okay, so currently, what is, and what would it have to go down to? Well,
Oh, regarding the flow, I believe
Yeah,
the projected flow, our geotechnical engineer came up with almost 4,000 gallons per day, or 3,950. The house and the center were connected to this pumping station, so it's a combination of the residential and the commercial portion. A lot of that flow also pertains to the kitchen that's proposed in the center as well. So there's a number of factors that contributed to that gallonage, but 2,000 gallons is the maximum for a septic system.
okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I believe we discussed where the force main would be heading. It's to the north, approximately 900 feet to the north would be the nearest gravity sewer system. We're currently having a surveyor acquire additional information along Homedale Road so that we can properly profile and detail that force main connection. But as I understand, it's approximately 900 feet to the north. I'll just point out that we've provided evergreen screening of whatever it ends up being above grade. Like I mentioned, it could be a shed-like structure, or it could just be the control panel itself. They could be waterproof. Those elements.
So-
But
Again, because it's in the front yard and because it is part of a site plan, we will have that answer before we conclude the hearings. We will have it shown on the plans. Should it be a structure, there'll be a detail of that structure. So when Andy says what if, meaning we don't know today yet, but before we're concluded in front of this hearing, you will know every detail.
certainly. So, moving on from the sewer to water.
Before
Rick,
we move on,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have a question. You indicated that there was it 30,000 gallon flow?
Yes.
3,950.
Correct. Yes, just shy of 4,000.
Has anyone asked or determined what impact would that sort of flow have on the current system that's there?
Well, we did have preliminary discussions. I actually spoke with the director at Bayshore Regional Sewerage Authority, and he indicated that the treatment plant does have sufficient capacity to accept that additional flow, and he would be supportive, or at least he was a year ago when I spoke to him, as he would be supportive as far as that sewer service amendment, because we do need his authorization, as well as the county, as well as the NJDEP, in order to make that mapping amendment.
Is there a report about
About the gallonage, or-
and the impact?
I don't know per se, no, not.
You would need a will serve letter, correct?
Correct.
So they would go and ask for a will serve, which basically says that they have the capacity to service the development. They probably wouldn't do that until something got approved here, correct?
Right. Well, we did send out will serve letters as we do at the beginning of every project. I don't believe Bay Shore responded, as sewage authorities usually don't.
But, Mr. Bell, it wouldn't be part of the proceedings here, but should this be approved, obviously, that would be one of the outside agencies that would be a condition of approval, and we'd have to submit detailed drawings and reports and analyze the impact. And as you know, if it was going to be an impact that necessitated any kind of upgraded infrastructure, we'd be responsible for our proportionate share of that.
Okay. Moving on to water service. The building will have both a domestic line and a fire service. However, the size of which is not known. But as the board engineer did point out correctly, due to the building setback being over 100 feet from Homedale Road, the water company will likely require an above-ground heated enclosure for a backflow preventer, also known as a hot box. We're showing that as this blue rectangle on the plan, as 18 feet long, 7 feet wide, and 6.5 feet high. And it would be a stainless steel box. And that's a very large size, and it could end up being much smaller than that, but depending on several factors, including whether or not the meter is within this box or outside in an underground meter. So there are a lot of factors, but at this point, yes. Jen.
Andy, we don't have control over whether or not they require a hot box.
No, this is it's a utility company requirement, and we have to provide it if we want to
Okay.
connect to their
And
system.
while you show limited landscaping in front of it here, obviously, since it would be in the front yard, and we would certainly landscape it to the extent necessary that there'd be access, but it wouldn't be visible
Correct.
the way it potentially is here.
Initially, we wanted to at least provide an evergreen screen to the residential property to the north, but we do have to make sure we have adequate access to this for service, to the box for service.
Mr. Comey?
Yes.
On the water service, you had indicated that there will be separate fire and domestic service to the synagogue?
That's my understanding at this time, yes.
All right, so you only show a single water line, so that plan would have to be revised to show both?
If there is a separate line, and correct, yes, we would have to show both.
All right, and how is the water service being handled for the parsonage?
There was previously a water service, obviously, to Homedale Road for the prior dwelling, which I'm assuming was removed or capped. So we would have to provide another service to Homedale Road.
That would need to be shown on the plans.
Correct. I saw that in your letter, and of course, we will definitely provide that. The only service for the parsonage, which I'll get to, I'll describe all the details of the parsonage, is the sanitary sewer would connect to the shared pumping station.
But it would have its own individual water.
Correct. Own individual water, gas, and electric, yes. So moving on to the aforementioned rabbi's house. Let me just zoom out. I'm sorry?
No, don't answer the
Okay,
public.
fine.
We didn't get to drainage yet.
Okay.
We will get to drainage.
Absolutely. With respect to the rabbi's residence, a single-family dwelling to be used as the rabbi's residence is proposed on the southerly portion of the site in nearly the same location as the former dwelling that was demolished. The house will be 5,100 square feet and includes a basement, a rear paver patio area, and a two-car attached garage. The house is 43.5 feet from the side property line and will be screened with a staggered row of evergreen trees. An 18-foot wide paved driveway with mountable Belgian block curbing is proposed along the driveway with a circular turnaround at the top of the driveway. Adequate parking will be provided on site, and I'll just mention that since portions of the driveway exceed 8% as required under the ordinance, an additional 2 parking spaces are provided at the base of the slope of the driveway near Homedale Road.
And
as
Andy, this
required.
driveway location is slightly different than that which we submitted on those submitted plans.
Yes, that's correct. We ended up shifting the driveway from 3.5 feet to the property line to 20 feet from the property line, which would comply with the ordinance.
And essentially, the original driveway shown on the submitted plans was mimicking the existing driveway.
That's correct. The existing driveway will now be completely demolished, and only the 18-foot wide proposed driveway would remain, yes.
Okay, and another change on the plan as it relates to the parsonage. Previously, you had a walkway from the synagogue to the parsonage along the front, connecting kind of at the bottom of that steep driveway,
Yeah,
and we've
right there.
relocated it to flatter lands around the back corner.
Correct. The westerly portion of the property at the rear of the center, yes. And that was recommended by, the board engineer asked that we look into the sidewalk, and we found that this is a much better alternative.
Right.
Just a couple more quick things on the residential home. A 5-foot by 10-foot concrete pad is proposed near Homedale Road for garbage can pickup. We talked about utility services. I believe that's it for the single-family home.
Mr. Comey, on that garbage trash pad location,
Yes.
it seems to be about 20 or 30 feet off the edge of pavement.
Well, we're putting it outside of the proposed right-of-way dedication, so we're just inside our property as proposed.
I'm just curious as, if that's where the cans are going to be, how are they going to be accessed by the garbage company? Are they going to swing up that driveway, which then could create a traffic condition as they're backing out? So you may want to just look to relocate that pad.
Well, we are dealing with the county. Yes.
We'll look at either relocating it or finding a location on the paved portion of the driveway in order to do it. Maybe we'll widen the throat of the driveway where it could be put there.
Thank you.
But we'll look at that. Thanks, Mr. Euro.
On the driveway, I also see your gas, et cetera, connections, but I don't see the connections on the county road.
For
Should we-
the single-family home, we
No,
don't.
for.
I'm sorry.
I'm back to the main drive.
Sure.
You have your gas connections. See, it's all threw me off. I was working with this at home. That's,
Madam Chair?
yes.
One of my comments in my letter, which is dated November 11th, 2024, was for the applicant to show all the existing utilities
Oh,
within
okay.
Homedale Road so that we can better assess those connection
Yeah,
points.
because it shows the gas, et cetera, but it didn't show anything on Homedale Road, on the county road.
We didn't get to it yet, but we don't take any exception with any of the suggestions in Mr. Euro's letter. And it sounds
Right.
like we're gonna have time between now and then to address most of them.
Good.
So just so everybody knows, everything in Bob's letter, we're happy to comply with. Is that correct, Andy?
That's correct.
Okay.
Moving on to stormwater management, portions of the existing site drains towards 2 points of concern, either towards Homedale Road or to the rear of the site to the west. In the proposed condition, as required, the project proposes to reduce the peak runoff rates to those same 2 points of analysis. The project meets the township and state's definition of a major development for stormwater management purposes, and with that comes certain requirements for stormwater quantity, stormwater quality, and groundwater recharge. To help achieve those goals, the project proposes 2 dry, small-scale infiltration basins, one to the north of the main parking lot, and one at the front of the site, or to the easterly portion of the site. The basins would provide stormwater detention, water quality treatment, and groundwater recharge before discharging to the Homedale Road piped conveyance system. The basins would remain dry except during and immediately after a rainfall event, and would have a security fence around the perimeter of each basin for safety.
And what are we proposing for the security fence?
We propose a split rail fence with a wire mesh backing.
Okay.
With respect to lighting, the driveways,
But
go ahead.
before you go on
Yes.
for that, we did the soils testing to, I know that the public had asked about infiltration.
see.
So, as it relates to the basins, has the testing been done to demonstrate that they will function as designed?
Yes, we did. A company performed testing for groundwater separation and infiltration rates, and those are included in our design.
Madam Chair, Mr. Comey, I know Ms. Krimko, and you had identified that you accepted all of the comments in my letter and that you will comply, but just for the record, under, let me just double check the page. Under page 6, item E, my stormwater management comments, there are a number of comments, and this is also for the public's edification, where we are identifying a number of design criteria that need to be addressed, additional information needed for the design of these two detention basin areas, that could possibly change the size of those, depending on the infiltration rates and the rainfall intensities, et cetera. But there are a number of comments in my letter that need to be addressed as this application moves forward.
Yes, we will comply.
And just to follow up, you did mention that you are tying into the existing drainage system on Homedale Road. As one of the items in my letter also, we need some downstream analysis. We are not sure where the pipe runs from the inlet on the easterly side of Homedale Road. It looks like it's a dead-end manhole, so that needs to be clarified. And I do know that that is in line with some of the comments in the County Planning Board letter also.
Yes, we are currently having the additional survey information provided. Okay. With respect to lighting, the driveways and parking areas will be lit with downward pointing LED fixtures. The lights would be dark sky compliant and have a mounting height of 20 feet. There will be no light spillage beyond the property line. In fact, the nearest light, and the lights are shown on this exhibit as small red rectangles. The nearest light, in fact, is over 100 feet to the nearest side lot line. However, as an added measure, we will add house side shields on all the lights at the perimeter of the parking areas to reduce the chance of any potential light and glare leaving the property. Although the calculations show that there is no light spillage at the ground. The lights would be placed on timers and left on, I normally say from dusk until 1 hour after closing. I know there was some testimony regarding the hours of operation. We can certainly take some comments and whatever we arrive as far as the hours of operation for the lighting, we will add that as a note to the site plans.
Right, and I think that the hours of operation may vary day to day, so I think that we can agree to the lights, except for security lighting that Mr. Euro might think is necessary to keep on. The lights would be on a timer to go off 1 hour after the use is concluded.
Does that include the signage?
Certainly, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
it would all be on one system, we'll say. Okay. Moving on to just real quickly back to the single-family residence. We didn't show any proposed lighting, but the board engineer did request that lighting be provided for the residents. So we will show low-level bollard lighting lining the driveway, just to provide some measure of lighting, but nothing that would extend beyond the property line. So that's the goal. Very, very low level. Talk 4-foot high light, downward pointing lights. With respect to landscaping, let me just zoom out so you can see the full picture. Existing tree removal is minimized as the limit of disturbance is primarily over the existing farmed portions of the property. The wooded wetlands area to the rear of the property, and this exhibit doesn't show the full extent, but the property extends a little further to the west. That would all be protected, and as recommended by the board engineer, we would agree to place this area under a conservation easement to prevent any development in the future. The trees along the side the existing trees along the side lot lines would be maintained and enhanced with additional buffering as shown on the exhibit. In total, 86 trees would be removed, and 166 trees and 296 shrubs are proposed, as well as additional flowering perennials are also proposed.
Just for clarification on as far as the size of the parking lot and the whole development, on A1, where on the western side of the site where the wetlands
Yeah,
are,
yes.
does the building and parking lot fit right where the current farm is?
Correct, yes.
So the wetlands in the back on the west side, sorry,
Right here.
yes, that will stay as is.
We are not
So the
touching
temporary
right.
parking spots do not encroach into
The
those
temporary
wetlands.
parking spots would be right around the T and
Perfect, thank
project
you.
site. Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
I think you can sort of see that as well on referring back now to A2, where the limit of tree clearing is we are grading up to the limit of existing trees, basically. So, as requested, as far as street trees, we didn't propose any on the submitted plan. Your board engineer requested street trees. The length of the property dictates that 11 trees be planted, which we've provided. However, the spacing was required to be one tree every 50 feet, which we can't comply due to a portion of the frontage being heavily encumbered by wetlands and a steep drop-off in vertical grade. So what we're proposing to do is provide the 11 trees, but revise the spacing. So we would seek a design waiver for the spacing, but not for the quantity. We're proposing the correct quantity. I will just,
Mr.
go ahead.
For the board's edification, I don't take exception to the requests for the waiver for the spacing. I would just make sure that whatever species of trees you are proposing there, the canopy doesn't expect a wider area, which would wind up killing a lot of the trees. So choose, I'm sure you have someone in your landscape department, right, Bob, that would make sure that the canopy is a little bit more vertical versus horizontal to prevent that from happening.
Certainly. And one other thing we were just talking about this week is that if the county does not allow the street trees to be within their proposed right-of-way dedication, we may shift the trees back to be on the new property, our actual property after the right-of-way dedication.
Right, but our preference is to put them up on the street because that's
I think that
what
makes the
the
most sense.
intent of the ordinance. But ultimately, it'll be up to the county whether or not those street trees can be in their right-of-way.
So far, they have not seen the street trees, so we'll resubmit a plan to them. As far as we touched on the board engineer and planner's review letter, that we can comply with all the comments that haven't been mentioned. But there is one comment I did want to touch on in the board engineer's letter, and that's regarding testing for pesticides. Testing was actually performed, and that's because the property was traditionally a farm field. Testing was actually overseen by an LSRP, and we'll submit that to the board, of course. Pesticides were not found, but 2 of the samples did find the element arsenic at concentrations that exceed the DEP non-residential and residential standards, and so therefore that has to be reported to the DEP. But according to the LSRP, since based on the soil types found in this area, there's a very good chance that arsenic is naturally occurring, but additional testing would have to be performed to confirm that. If it is naturally occurring, nothing needs to be done. But if it is not naturally occurring, it would have to be remediated, and the LSRP would oversee that and issue a remedial action outcome to that effect.
And that's all governed by the DEP, though.
Correct.
Okay.
Essentially, that's we will submit that testing, but that's essentially that report stands on its own, and that's my summary of that.
Madam Chair, Mr. Comey, can you provide a little bit of testimony on the grading of the property? Because currently, as everyone knows, the existing grade is several feet below that of the roadway. So if you can just give a little testimony on if there's going to be any fill required, the grading patterns, and especially your access drive from the synagogue to and from Homedale Road.
Certainly. You are correct. The site does drop off from Homedale Road down into the site. We're proposing to match those existing grades essentially, but to flatten it out a little bit more to make it a little more drivable. But to answer your question, as far as fill and cut, we did do some preliminary earthwork calculations and found that we're at a near balance. That's the goal. We don't want to have to import or export any soil. So we could submit something to show you those calculations, Mr. Euro, but that's certainly our goal. We're essentially trying to mimic the existing topography as much as possible.
Thank you. So I'm not sure if this will be a question for you or for possibly Mr. Ray. I know there's a concern about the driveway location. The width of Homedale Road, the hills, this pretty much sits in a little bit of a bowl. So you have a hill coming down southward on Homedale Road. The impacts of the patrons leaving the driveway at Homedale Road, and whether there's a need for dedicated left turn lanes or accel or decel lanes to and from the site.
I would defer that question to Mr. Ray, the traffic engineer.
Thank you.
Not yet.
And further to that, Mr. Euro, we're going to update this to show the site distances at that intersection so that you can have that analysis.
Thank you very much. And one other follow-up question on some of the site circulation regarding the grass parking lot permeable area at the rear of the site. You're showing an 18-foot wide throat for the access to the back. Is that wide enough for circulation? Considering the rest of the site is at least 25 foot in width. And also, as you get to the southerly part of that parking field, I would suggest that you do at least a 5 to 7 foot turnaround, so people aren't backing onto the natural grade.
Like a hammerhead, you're saying.
That is correct.
Thank you.
We can certainly add that. I'll speak to the 18-foot. I mean, this is intended to not be used very frequently. We thought the 18-foot wide would provide enough for two-way access, traveling at very low speeds. We didn't treat this as a typical 25-foot wide two-way driveway. If that creates an issue, we can certainly look to widen that to 25 feet. But we're trying to minimize, the lot coverage as much as possible.
I think I'd rather have it as a dedicated, like a minimum 24, especially since you are overparked. You only need, you have 136 spaces, I think, that are paved. So you can look to lose one or two of those spaces adjacent to the trash enclosure and maybe, get a normal width access to that.
Okay,
remote
there's
area.
several options. We can certainly look at that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. You can
That
continue with-
concludes the affirmative portion of the engineer's testimony, obviously subject to questions by the board, by the public, and
Okay, but before I begin, Jen, do you have anything that you want to?
No, Mr. Comey addressed my issues on his direct testimony.
Okay, terrific. Okay, any questions for Mr. Comey from the board? Mr. Fagan?
I'm looking at the survey, and it's got this orange on it. I didn't hear testimony about that, but could you explain what that is? Showing a driveway easement that appears not to be on your property, right?
I can pull that up on the screen. It's probably better than me trying to pull out the paper copy. That was submitted, so.
What page is that?
It's a hard.
so this is part of what was this is part of what was previously submitted. You want me to do it?
Yes, please. Thank you. Oh, you have to do right. Thank you.
So this is the survey that was submitted as part of the application package, so we did not move it in as a separate exhibit. And just to identify it for the record, it is a boundary and topographic survey prepared by James P. Deedy Surveyor LLC, revised through 6/1/23. And Mr. Fagan, the question is with regard to the orange highlight.
Well, this A2 shows your property is. Shows your property is basically a rectangle, right? With the addition of the orange, I don't understand. Is that your property or not your property?
It's a driveway easement, which is highlighted, and apparently it encompasses portions of the adjacent property as well. No, our
Explain that
property-
again to me. I have no idea what you
Our
said.
property is as shown on A2. The orange area is a driveway easement that extends across two properties.
So, just to explain, can you go back to the aerial? The existing condition, could you come into it? Right.
Yes.
In the existing conditions, on the edge of our property, there's an existing driveway that goes up. So there's a driveway easement that partially encumbers our property and partially encumbers the property to the south. So it's shown on the survey, well, it's not part of our property, since a portion of the easement is, the entirety of the easement is shown on that survey. So our property line doesn't change. It was just showing which portion of that driveway easement is on our property. So, right, if you,
It's not changing the property line.
Well-
just
No, it's
showing
their
the area
driveway.
Below it where there's a driveway to the flag lot.
Ms. Krimko, just for clarification, so you do have on your property a 20-foot ingress egress easement that runs the entire length to the rear.
correct.
Will that easement stay or be extinguished? What is the purpose of it right now? Is it for access to lot 40.07 at the back, or?
We can look at, I didn't do the title search for this, I didn't handle the transaction. We're not proposing to extinguish it at this point, particularly since our driveway doesn't interfere with it. Our driveway is set back the required 20 feet.
Understood, you just may want to understand what it's there for, so that you don't have somebody looking to use it down the road.
Understood. Understood, and again, even if they were to use it down the road, in order to develop it, they'd have to go through the proper permits. As you can see, the driveway that exists on our property doesn't extend the full depth of the lot anyway. So whoever has rights to that easement would be the responsible party for developing it in order to access it and getting whatever necessary approvals are required for
Is
that.
that the portion of the driveway that you're taking out?
Yeah.
But it is on your we need a copy of that
You have a copy, oh, you mean a copy of the,
easement agreement.
presuming that there,
In this-
we'll
this
certainly,
deed book and page,
we'll
right, we'll-
certainly pull it from the deed book and page.
Regarding drainage and infiltration, I've seen developments that whereby the residents are required to put their drainage downspouts into an underground contained dry well. What's the situation with this house?
We're not proposing a set of standard dry well for this. We're treating the stormwater analysis on an overall property basis. We have to meet, since we're a major development, we're meeting the major development requirements. There may be certain requirements for a single-family home that submits to the township for construction.
So we're going above what would be the typical downspout collection in a dry well for a single-family home based on the complexity of the overall drainage solution.
That's correct. I mean, almost entirety of the drainage for the whole property, the parsonage included, is draining to either of the two infiltration basins as proposed on site.
But it's not being led to it's just dumping out on the ground, correct?
Well, as far as the downspouts and.
Downspout comes
Right.
off the house, collects the
Right.
water from the gutters and the roof, dumps. Sometimes it goes into a dry well in order
Right.
to infiltrate into the ground. In your case, are you saying that there's none of that that's going on to the ground?
Correct, we would discharge to splash block, essentially.
Is that,
Except
is that right?
except for the commercial building, of course, would have
No, no, no,
underground.
understood. So
I'm just
If Bob,
clarifying.
if Bob suggests that we
Mr.
handle it a
Fagan,
different way, we're happy to.
yeah, so the synagogue itself, the downspouts are connected directly to the drainage system within the parking lot, which then discharges into the 2 infiltration basins. The parsonage, it looks like it discharges directly at grade, but due to the grades in that area, it eventually flows down towards the synagogue and then gets collected in that system that's adjacent to the parking lot and the 2 infiltration basins. So it ends up, as Mr. Comey had mentioned, it eventually ends up into those 2 infiltration basins anyway. So I don't have an issue with how it's being discharged at this point.
And there's no waiver required to
No,
get around that?
no.
Regarding the detention basin, are you showing 2 inlets to each of those and no outlets? Is that what that is?
They each are equipped with an outlet control structure. That's these boxes that I'm highlighting here. They each have an inlet or a rip-wrapped apron entering the basin, if that's what you're referring to. So each of them has an entrance and an exit.
So where does the exit go?
It is discharged to the Homedale Road conveyance system, which we do need to get some additional downstream survey information as requested by your board engineer. But it discharges to the county's drainage system,
So storm sewers.
storm sewers, yes,
Okay.
correct. However, at a lesser rate than even the existing condition discharges to the county storm system.
And again, I think that that's important. Well, certainly Bob's entitled to it. This is is it a county system that we're discharging into?
It has to be, yes.
Right, so ultimately, that's something that, well, Bob has to be satisfied, the county engineers will also have to be satisfied.
The county has a similar set of comments as Bob had as well, so we're going to address them both at the simultaneously.
And my final was regarding Bob's comments about the ingress and egress main driveway and how the elevation is different to the property than it is from Homedale Road. And I would imagine cars coming out on a rainy or snowy day would have one heck of a time making a left-hand turn and beating the other traffic that's coming down Homedale Road. So I'm wondering about seeing
God bless you.
a more detailed driveway elevation as it comes out of the property and onto Homedale Road.
Right, and as indicated, we're gonna provide the site distances to show what you can or can't see, and our traffic engineer will go into detail with regard to the elevation changes.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, then I'll open this portion. Huh? 2 minutes.
But you may want to cut off at 10:30.
Right.
I'm gonna raise this. Everybody seems to need it.
Okay. Before I continue, the time is now 9:45. I will limit each and every one to 2-minute questions, no ifs, ands, or buts. State your name, Mr. Lavin, and your address.
Decimus Plusas.
Okay.
My name is Jim Lavin. I live at 7 Barrister Drive in Homedale, New Jersey.
Hello.
Will the rabbi's house be connected to will that have septic?
No, it will be connected to the pumping station, as I testified.
If you get a pumping station,
Correct.
they have to pump it over the hill.
The sewage would be
There's
pumped
no other way.
to
There's
the
no other
north.
way. You have to pump it over the hill.
Right, it would be upgraded, yes, correct.
Right.
The pumps are designed to handle that, to handle that difference in vertical elevation.
And the Nokia building, that's 72,000 square feet, right across the street.
Sure.
And
It's
they're
not on
o-
the exhibit, but I know where you're referring to. Go
Excuse
ahead.
me? They have a pumping station.
Okay. I don't know.
They have a pumping station. It goes downhill, goes over the top of the hill and goes down. And they're just getting ready to open that at the medical offices. So that's going to put more of a burden on that street,
There's no-
that 2-lane street, which doesn't make any sense.
Well,
Yeah. Have you looked into that?
Of the capacity of the sanitary sewer, is that what we're talking about?
No.
Because you said the two-lane street, I'm not,
The two-lane street
Right.
that's there.
You're
What-
talking about traffic now.
We're talking about the engineering.
are you talking about sanitary sewerage?
Yes,
Right,
you got the sanitary sewers, it's got to go over the top of the hill.
okay,
You need a pumping station.
right.
And this whole project depends on whether you get the pumping station or not.
Whether we get the mapping amendment from the state and county, correct, yes,
Yeah, they both have to approve it.
certainly.
Right. And then, will that, when you have a pumping station and you have to join the sewer, does it they have to pay for that?
We would handle all the costs of connecting to the gravity sewer system to the north of this property.
And would
Uh,
they have to pay for their sanitary sewer every month,
We would have to pay a connection fee to the
quarterly?
okay.
and there's an initial connection fee to Bayshore Regional Sewage Authority. I believe there's actually a Homedale connection fee, having just gone through this on another project just up to the north of this property. But yes,
Yes, we would have to pay.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Mr.
So-
Levin, it's 3 minutes, and everybody wants. Thank you so much. Next question, please. State your name.
Madam Chair, if I could just interrupt for one
Yes.
second, and I know there was testimony given on the force main and the pumping system. For any future plans, if we could at least see the limits, and I know you're working with an outside engineer, the limits of where that gravity sewer is?
Yes.
So we know what the distances that we're tying in.
yes, we'll do an off-site sewer plan that we'll provide to the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. State your name again, please.
Alexis Horvat, 810 Homedale Road. Oh no, is this good? Hi. So you mentioned when going to the county in these types of situations for the sewer, it could be like a bulk sort of situation.
We didn't mention that, Mr. Euro did.
Mr. Euro did. So would it be? Could you give some more information? Like the rest of our neighbors here along this, we're all septic. So if we were to come together and somehow all connect, would that be some kind of possibility? Is that typically done in these things, or would it just be that they're going to connect and then we would be on our own to connect?
This application is just for this property alone to make a connection and have the sewer service area amended to include this property in the plan, so that they could then go into the gravity sewer system. Your development is which?
I'm right next door. So it would have to go through my property and the property next to me to connect to the existing sewer. So that's why I was asking if
I think it's probably gonna run down the road.
Yeah, we would go down the right of way, not on your property. Just
But you're
Just to
asking whether
clarify.
you have the
Well,
opportunity
right.
to
So
tie
if
into
this
it.
is like an opportunity, which is a very expensive thing typically done, so as neighbors, if this would be the time to perhaps
Pool your resources and
get on board to get onto the sewer.
that could be investigated. I do not have that answer for you right now.
Okay, so that was my first question. May I ask another question regarding the lights? Okay, so you said that they're dark sky compliant, and I see that there's trees along our border. We're the north side border here. It looks like
Yes.
there's a double layer of trees. Are each of the light posts enclosed? Is there a tree, like something very, like I understand what you're saying, they're pointed down, but
Right.
also I don't want to be looking at necessarily.
sure. Yes, we're gonna put a house side
They're all
shield
gonna be
behind the
shielded. What
lights.
does that mean?
It would be a metal screen that drops down behind the light, so you wouldn't see the glare. But I can assure you that there is no light spillage to your property line.
Any other questions? Okay, hi. Again.
James Shaharlis again, 811 Homedale Road. Could you bring that picture back?
Hi, James.
One
Oh,
of
sorry
those,
about
the catch basins.
The detention basins?
What do you call them, infiltration basins?
Yes, I'm just waiting for this to load.
Look at those again. Yeah.
No, it took a few seconds before, but it says no signal. I think it's working now. No.
There it is.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate it. Yeah, they're
Okay,
small-scale infiltration basins is what the state calls them.
The property across the street from this is one of my biggest concerns about this development.
Okay.
You originally said that you proposed having one of the basins going towards Homedale Road, the other one's going towards the existing wetlands, correct?
No, they're always were going towards Homedale Road, both basins.
Oh, all right.
One basin is to the north and one basin is to the
Okay.
front of the property. If you're confused where they are, they're these beige.
Oh, I'm not confused. I know,
Okay,
I know
okay, I'm
exactly
just-
where they
I'm
are,
just-
and I
just
see
making
the
sure.
inlet and the outlet to them. That's my concern.
Correct.
They're going towards Homedale Road. Once they cross under Homedale Road,
Right.
they run through my property.
Okay.
So my concern is land erosion. You said you were going to look into what's going further.
We're gonna.
Why are you shaking
yes.
your head? No, there's land erosion.
Because when he testified that it's going into the pipes that go under the road. It's not coming across the street onto your property.
No, it's exactly what it's doing. I live there. It's exactly what it does. It goes under the street in a pipe and then comes out to a creek that runs down the entire length of my property, all 550 feet of it. So that's land erosion from the water coming from that.
Okay.
When-
And what he also said is it's gonna come out slower and less than it does today.
No, because you're forcing the water that comes now, that goes towards.
All
Why are
of
you rolling your
okay.
eyes? The water now goes back towards the back of the property.
I didn't roll my
and-
eyes.
No, you did. The water now goes towards the back of the property. You're putting it in the catch basin and
Wait.
directing
No,
it
that-
towards
that's-
Homedale Road.
That's not correct. The water actually all goes towards Homedale Road, except for a small portion that is going back to the west. The farm field had a drainage system, which is piped to Homedale Road. It's located in this wetlands area. That's why this area became
That is correct.
wetlands.
Correct.
Correct.
Now, behind the building, all that parking lot is now being directed towards Homedale Road.
No,
Before-
sorry, sir. I'm not trying to cut you off. But every portion of the parking lot is being directed to the detention basins, which will discharge to Homedale Road. None of the parking areas will be discharging to the west or to the rear of the property.
I'm sorry, repeat that? You just said all of the water will
All-
go to the detention center.
All of the water, all of the paved surfaces
Correct.
on this project will be directed towards the Homedale Road system.
That's exactly what
Okay.
I just said.
He lives across the street.
Right.
I understand.
Right.
But you had indicated in that water goes there today, correct?
Correct.
And you had offered testimony that it's going to be retained in those basins such that the outlet is going to be slower and less water than goes today.
Right.
Okay, so
The
I'm
timing
gonna
of it, is
disagree
that-
with that
Yes.
100% because ground now absorbs water. When you pave it, it no longer absorbs the water, it gets transferred to a basin, which now gets moved.
Bob, can you help us
So-
out here?
Well,
He's not
Yeah,
buying
go ahead.
anything
All
you
right.
say.
Okay.
So let's
please.
He is correct.
let's
Who's
let the
correct?
engine.
The engineer has designed two infiltration basins, which are going to collect all the water within the parking lot and from the synagogue. Infiltration basins have a sand bottom, which will allow infiltration back into the ground, percolation. Now, there will be a discharge to Homedale Road for any of the overflow, and based on the state calculations and the requirements, there will be discharge into the existing drainage system on Homedale Road. So, beyond that, we are asking for additional information. Once he ties into those inlets on Homedale Road, I don't know where it goes from there. It's not shown on his plans. We are asking, you're indicating that it may run onto your property. I can't tell you that from these plans. I'm requesting additional information so then we can then assess it, and then we can make further recommendations from that point.
Okay, that's my concern, is that if it is going to come that way,
Right.
that there would be some consideration as to what erosion may be occurring on the other side, not just what's happening on the site itself,
understood.
which
And-
is my concern.
Right.
Because if you do walk the property now, which I have, the water that is behind that building does travel to the land back there, which is why there's wetlands behind there as well. It's not just in the front of wetlands. There is wetlands behind the property as well.
Certainly, to the west.
So now some of that water would be forced the other direction. So my concern is what, long-term, obviously, not a single rainstorm or whatnot, but long-term erosion from that water coming down under the road through the property over
Right.
a long extended period of time.
Well, and as Bob clarified, we are going to get the additional survey information, but we are reducing the flow rates of the water leaving the site. Therefore, any erosion that occurs today, it would be a lesser amount in the
Well,
proposed
It's
condition.
a lesser amount for a period of time, but it's an
Lesser
extended
peak.
period of time, less peak, right.
Right,
So
more
it-
volume.
Why don't,
Exactly.
Possibly,
why
possibly.
don't we wait for the calculations and the new information to come forth?
Okay.
I wanted the public to know that, oh, why aren't my mics working? Too far away. Oh, my God. I want the public to understand, there will be, yeah, I'm too short. Dr. never comes, has an appointment for me. I want the public to understand that the engineer is going to have to do some recalculations and an amended site plan for information that, revised, that's right, I'm sorry, that Mr. Euro had requested. So there will be opportunity at the next meeting to ask him additional questions. Once we have clarification. I'm sorry, it was just, I didn't, you looked like you were hesitant, so I
No,
didn't.
yeah, I'll be concise too.
Okay.
Just good job everybody for answering some pretty charged questions, I just want to say, so that's nice. Sam Avellino, 16 Cindy Lane.
No one can be Smith, can I hear?
No, it's not that easy around here. Avellino. So first question, how many planned parking spaces are on the property?
There's 117 paved parking spaces and an additional 36 of the grass pave overflow parking.
Cool. All right, that was a softball question. And then second question, just you cleared up the fact that the cost of connecting the sewer lines would be something that like your organization would cover. Is that something that once they're connected, the cost of the sewage and the electrical cost to run the sewage pump, is that something that would be considered exempt? Or forgive my ignorance on the subject, is that exempt or is that something that utilities would be paid for by the
Yes, they'll have-
organization? I don't know if you're the right one to answer that, but I'm just trying to understand if,
I don't know
if
if
all of
utility-
the,
Right.
if all of their
Correct.
neighbors are paying to maintain
No, no,
the,
no, no,
the
no.
septic, I just want to make sure that,
We would be owning the pump on the property, so the cost for operating it, we would have to pay. And to the extent that we are sending sewage to the sewage authority, we would have to pay for that the same way anybody else would have to pay for it.
cool, thank you. Concise?
Yes, thank you. Under time. Her alarm didn't go off. Please state your name again.
Hi, it's Sean Bonney, 5 Longview Drive. This kind of relates to the headlights from vehicle traffic. So, our backyard faces the back, and we've studied the landscape plan, and, you've got a row of green giants to the north and, some kind of deciduous trees to the west. Kind of my concern and question is that, particularly with the auxiliary lot in the back and even the main one, cars are going to be driving in and out, and it's forested in the summer, but in the winter, it's pretty bare. So my biggest concern is that the headlights from the cars are going to shine all throughout the woods in the back into our backyards of all the surrounding property. So the request, I suppose, is that we add kind of an additional layer of staggered green giants to the north and to the west, including around the auxiliary parking lot. Because I'm worried about kind of the downlights in the parking lot. I think the shielding could help, but I think the real problem is going to be vehicular traffic in that area.
As it relates to vehicular traffic, we can add a solid fence there.
She said we could add a solid fence.
Which would be a buffer for the lights, the headlights.
I'd rather see like the 2 rows of staggered green giants, because this is a forested natural area, so we want to keep that the sanctity.
I think
So-
what would be very helpful at the next meeting, because I know we're getting late,
Yes.
is you need to provide that plan on an aerial that shows the entirety of the site.
Okay.
Because I think that there's, like,
Thank you.
how far, Andrew, is the auxiliary parking from the property line?
Over 150 feet.
So I think that you need to show everyone what you're talking about. I also know that there are environmental areas back behind the existing cleared area, correct?
Correct.
So could you commit to looking at screening, whether it be fence or landscaping or a combination of both,
Sure.
that would not impact the environmentally constrained area? But I do think that showing this site plan zoomed out on an overall aerial that shows exactly how far the existing homes are would be very helpful.
So let me start with, the applicant's willing to agree to any reasonable conditions to mitigate any impacts. I mean, we have no issue with that. Your concern was the lights, so on my experience, and I think Jen, the planner, agreed to, has probably the same amount of experience I do, typically for headlights, a solid fence is the best buffer, because as you know, as the trees grow, it's not always, again, we'll look at all the different options.
I would suggest a solid fence, but I would suggest landscaping on the residential side of
So-
the solid fence.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think,
So that you would get the greenery, but you would also get the protection of a
That's
fence
fine.
yeah,
from
we
the
can,
headlights.
we can keep all the deer in your property. We'll put a big fence there. But yeah, a fence with like 8 to 10 foot staggered green giants behind it, like that would probably do both. Because we don't want
I
to look
know
at a
what they are,
fence
they're great.
either, so. Thank you.
Again, I'm not committing to what it will be, but yes, it'll be something. We have to see how much space we have between where our lot is and where the wetlands start.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you. Come on up, better half.
I'm past my bedtime, you know? A little old for this. As long as, if you just committed to, I'm sorry, Ann Wright, 7 Longview Drive. You committed to maybe doing another picture of this, and that would be great. Could you add to it? I'd like to see what we're going to see from Longview Road. This gentleman who lives across the street, he's going to look at this property all the time, and we drive by this. I drive by 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day because I go to the post office, whatever else. What are we looking at? If you pull that up a little bit, you showed us a big blue box. Pull that up. No. This blue box over here on the right.
That's on Holmdel Road.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for when I drive down Holmdel Road. Right now we look.
So-
Right now we look at a beautiful.
Right, but they're not sure that that's gonna be there. That
Right,
was
but
something that they're
Mrs.
saying.
Wright, you said Longview, which I
Yeah.
think is what caused the confusion. But
Oh,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
what you're asking for is essentially a
Yeah.
computer-generated
Look.
view.
Yes.
That
I
is
am.
something we can
Yes.
definitely look into providing you, yes.
Because I see.
I understand
Yeah.
why, and we're
I
gonna,
see infiltration system, I see blue boxes, I see a pumping station.
Yes.
I'd like to see,
3D instead of.
You wanna-
I would like to see that it
Understood.
is still gonna look like Homedale. I want it to look like Homedale.
understood, and we'll look into that.
Okay, Mrs. Better Half.
I'm always right.
Okay, are there any other questions for the, I'm going once, going twice. Oh, look at that. You jumped. Hi,
Mr.
please
Kay.
state your name and your
Irfan
address.
Latif, and I live, last name Latif, Lateef, and I'm on the 818 right next door, or next driving lane that is shown here. So I saw some comments about 818A. That's on the left side.
Homedale Road?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there are 2 lots on that 818, A and B, so.
I don't know which one's A or B, but on this aerial exhibit, which one?
A is on the street side.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's
So
one.
you're lot 3601?
Yep.
Okay.
So, my question was, you clarified something about easement, and it's showing up based on Mr. Wesley Fagan's comment. There is a utility, telephone, and other lines going on right next to the, right next to that. That's my driveway. So, what's the impact? I mean, can you please clarify?
About this easement,
Yeah.
which we need to look into that, sir, and
Well, we're
Go
not
ahead.
looking into the easement on your property.
Okay.
Our surveyor included it because your property's shown. We're addressing the easement within our property lines. Any easements on your property would be.
That's my driveway, so that's showing as.
I understand that, and our
There's two.
surveyor is showing that, but we're not offering.
There's-
But Jen, if I can jump in, if that's one easement, we need to know what it is, and that could.
Of
so-
course it is.
Might
So we
impact
need to,
him.
we need to see a copy, obviously, before anybody can answer your question.
100%.
But it could be something that we have to address, but we don't know what it is yet.
Right, and Marty, I don't know, we have the easement for ingress, the 20-foot right-of-way easement on our property. Obviously, we'll get you that. We'll have to look at, the reference to the one on the neighbor's property, I don't know if that extends onto our property or not. It's all the same color.
Right.
So it's hard to tell. So we'll certainly, if the surveyor plotted it, he must have it. We'll get a copy of it and share it. But again, as far as clarifying the impact on his property, I can't do that.
So come back at the next meeting and let's see what it says. And
I
then
hope
ask your
that the planning board will continue to allow me to drive on that and not get blocked or anything of that sort. That's my Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? I now close the public portion of this meeting. Thank you, everybody, for coming and your input and your questions. Thank you. Okay,
And again, just to clarify, we're carrying,
So, before everybody leaves,
but we haven't adjourned.
haven't adjourned.
We haven't adjourned yet.
This, to make it clear, you should carry it now
Yes.
officially.
This meeting will be carried to our next meeting, which is the reorganization meeting on January 7th, 2025, without further notice, and we will then assign it a date for hearing,
Yes,
for scheduling only. Okay.
So we keep all of our.
Any other- You want mine?
we haven't adjourned, so if you could just keep it down a little, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any additional professional reports?
No, ma'am.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
Second.
Okay. You want to voice or? Okay. Okay. Aye. You want roll call?
No, just show of hands, everybody agrees?
Aye. Everybody, show of hands to adjourn? Aye. Okay, meeting adjourned.